Let's start with old Stellar Blade. Let me just pull up my gameplay here.
Stellar Blade came out, what, April?
Yeah, it was a couple months ago. I mean, we're in June. Shit. Yeah, I think it was April-ish. So yeah, it came out then. A lot happened between now and then. Been busy with other stuff, i.e. Final Fantasy. Don't want to touch anything else till I was done. And now I've put in a good 10 hours into Stellar Blade. Let me tell you, this game has surprised me in a good way, because I didn't think I wouldn't like it, but I'm liking it a lot more than I thought I would.
That's always great. I love when that happens.
Yeah, it's a character action game, which will make one immediately think of the likes of a Bayonetta or Devil May Cry. And it is that, but what's interesting is that it feels more weighty, in the sense that it reminds me a lot of Sekiro in a lot of ways, in terms of how you can like block, for example. Just the combat has a weight to it, which it kind of blends the two together. And then it's funny because there's the typical Dark Souls thing where if you rest at a campsite, the enemies respawn. I don't know why. In terms of story that happens, there's no like canonical explanation that I've identified, but it happens. Okay. So it's like taking all of these, a little bit of Bayonetta, a little bit of Sekiro, a little like a touch of Dark Souls, even in terms of bosses and boss design, and it's just like brought them all together into this very stylistic character action game that visually looks really good. I don't know if you've like seen any gameplay or anything, but I think it's quite a pretty looking game. And I think I'll talk about the combat a bit. What makes it interesting is that you got your typical light attack, heavy attack, whatever. But you also get to charge a bar called I think it's beta energy, where if you block, let me talk about why it reminds me of Sekiro. If you time your block with an attack, you do a deflection, very akin to Sekiro. There's a satisfying like swing sound.
Oh yes.
If you time that right, you build up a meter, which you can then use to do other attacks. So there's this cool balance of you've got offense. If you time your blocks properly, you can do special attacks. And then now, just 10 hours in, now I've unlocked a whole separate bar and a whole separate meter as well that also charges up in a similar manner, which has unlocked a whole separate skill tree of special attacks. So there's definitely a lot of depth to this game on that front. At a later stage, you also get a weapon that you can shoot. You can do ranged combat with, and it's not just one type of shell. You can put shotgun shells, explosive shells, etc. So there's definitely a lot of depth to the combat in this game. And I think that's where it surprised me the most, is that I was expecting, like, I don't know what I was expecting actually, just kind of like a mindless button mashy thing. I mean, if you play a Bayonetta, for example, you can arguably get away with just mashing buttons. If you don't care for the score or anything, you can just, mash your way through it. But you definitely need to have some kind of strategy in this game, because you can die very quickly. And the enemies aren't like too difficult, but if you're not paying attention, they can overwhelm you quickly. So yeah, I think it's just surprised me, because I don't know what I expected, to be honest.
But that's kind of cool. It does sound like a bit of a mishmash of ideas. Like, if you have 5 places to rest and enemies respawn, does that mean like levels fold in on each other? Like, why, if it's linear, why would you need to rest at a campsite, for example?
It doesn't quite nail. I mean, there are, it's the typical thing where you'll go down a path and unlock a shortcut. But it feels, it's not quite as good as, say, a Bloodborne or Dark Souls, in that you come back to an area, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe how this connects. It's kind of like, oh, I guess this is where I am now. But it does have elements of that makes sense.
And you've got this little robot that's following you?
Oh, so that's another character. And that, if you see I'm using ranged combat now, that's actually the drone on my arm.
Okay.
So that's,
I was about to say, because like I've heard lots of comparisons between this and Nier Automata, and like in Nier Automata, that's exactly how that works as well,
Oh,
which is just funny.
So I've never played Nier Automata, so I mean, you would know better than I am, like where the overlap comes in here.
I mean, I've just heard anecdotally that this game tries a lot of things that are very Nier adjacent, and from a mechanical standpoint, that's one of them. Like your drone is your ranged attack, although you don't like hold it like a gun; it just kind of floats and shoots for you. I've also heard the story is trying to like dabble in the same themes, but nowhere near as like delicate and complex with those themes. And you said that the story's like throwaway.
I was gonna ask. I mean, I know Nier Automata is like also futuristic. Humanity's like kind of gone, sort of thing, whatever. And I think the premise, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the premise is very similar in that you start the game, you are called, your name's Eve, but you are an angel sent from a colony in space. And then as you play the game, you figure out that like, oh, humanity was kind of pushed to extinction and they fled to space. And now you've come back as Eve to try to save humanity from this threat called the Natiba. Like, I don't know if it's like if it's alien or just, you know, a parasite that's taken over Earth, but your sole mission is to, you know, save humanity from this threat. And that's like the premise for the story in a nutshell. And obviously there's a lot of exposition when you're exploring. Like, you'll find, you know, data logs, notes, that sort of thing, which flesh it out. But I was saying to you before we started recording, it's not that the story is bad, it's just it's not particularly good. I don't think. It's an interesting setting, but I think it's maybe let down also by the voice acting. Like, not that it's bad, it's just not really good either. Some of the lines, the way they're delivered, I'm like, kind of like roll my eyes, like, of course, you know, that's what's said, or that's how it's being said. But it's not taking away from our overall enjoyment of the game. I mean, even just to just touch on the combat a bit more in terms of how you can sort of customize further with, you get things called like collectibles or items. So for example, you get an exospine, which is an item you can equip, which will give you, so the one I've got equipped, it sort of lets me do more damage, do more critical damage and more damage when I finish combos. You get a whole lot of different ones. So you get one that like maybe does more shield damage against enemies. You can level it up to do other things. Then you get gears that further let you augment, you know, what you want to focus on in your playstyle. So for example, you might have a gear, and you can equip 4 of them by the end of the game. So you might have a gear that lets you do 10% faster attack speed, one that lets you do you know, maybe move faster or do more damage with combos. So there's that level of customization as well, which is really cool.
Okay. I'd love an exospine. That sounds sick.
It sounds good. And then, yeah, it's funny because the more I play, the drip feeds you things. I mean, you don't start with all of this. You don't start with the ranged weapon. You see me doing a double jump. I got that recently, and it's a game changer. I'm like, man, why did they not just start the game like this? It feels good to double jump and get around, because initially the first areas you're exploring, you can do a single jump and it's a bit awkward. Like, you know, if you fall down a ledge, I'm like, how the hell do I jump back up here? I can't jump high enough. Like, just give me the double jump. And it's not like a
Metroidvania thing where you get like a new ability and you're like, oh, I can go back to this place and this place.
You can revisit past areas, and there are side quests which will take you back to past areas, but I not to my knowledge has it been a thing of like, oh, you've got this ability, now you can go back and do. It's like not the... I don't think it's that level of Metroidvania where you kind of have to go back or you want to go back to explore, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's an interesting game. Like, it's not without fault. I think it's weird because visually the game's gorgeous, but there's something about it that makes me think of PS3 era games. And
yeah, it's got that vibe to it.
Like there's something about the visual that it makes me think PS3 era games had this sort of maybe shine to it, or a specific kind of look to it. And this has that, even though I can't put my finger on it. But there's also certain design choices which are a little bit frustrating. It's like, for example, if you take... So right out the gate, you can fast travel in this game, but only if you're at a fast travel point. which is annoying because it's like I'm in the middle of a wasteland. I need to get to that side of the map, but I've got to first travel to this fast travel point before I can travel to that fast travel point. It just feels like a weird thing when I'm like, you can fast travel in this game. Why can I not just open the menu, go there?
Yes.
You know? And like that's fine, but where it's really frustrating, it's when you finish, you get a whole lot of side missions to do. And if you, so say for example, it's like I need to go find, you saw that cutscene, I just died.
You were fucking destroyed by a
I
train.
wasn't
there.
fast
Jesus.
enough. So it's like, oh, you need to go kill this enemy. It's my side quest. So I go kill that enemy. I've had this happen to me, and it's like, cool, you've completed your side quest. Do you want to go hand it in? And you can then hit yes, and then like it'll take you straight back to whoever gave you the quest. But I'm like, no, I'm still in this area. Like, there's a collectible right there that I want to go pick up. So I say no. And then then I can stay in the area, but then there's no quick way for me to get back to the hub. I have to like run to a fast travel point, run to like my ship, travel to the home base. I'm like, it just feels weird. Like, why was that not considered in 2024? It just feels a bit strange.
Might be wrong, but that sounds like a thing your automata did as well. It frustrated me to no end. It was just like, it would take you so far back and then be like, cool, you handed this in for one line of dialogue. Now you're here and you're so far away from what you wanted to do. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword because it's nice to have the thing of you can go back right now, but then it's also like, good luck getting back to where you were.
Like, I don't mind games that do that if it's like very, you're going to talk to a character and get something quite nice, story-wise, or there's a reason for going back. But so often, I think Stellar Blade and Nier and so many other games are guilty of this, where they make you go back to a quest giver and the person's just like, hey, thanks for doing this, and then you get a reward. And it's like, why couldn't that have triggered automatically when I just finished the side quest, Like, there's no purpose to go back here. It's just wasting my time.
To your point, some of the side quests you get are literally given through a bulletin board. So I'm like, I don't need to go back there. Surely you can just hand the quest in. We live in this world where you've got communication. Like my drone, it's a pilot talking to me. Like surely you can send a message, send an SMS back to Mother Base.
Final Fantasy Rebirth is surprisingly pretty good at that. Like the times that it does make you go back to a quest giver, it's for a reason.
Yes, yeah. Look, so but all that said, I think if you could play this game, not touch a side quest, have a good time. I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's about I'm 10 or so hours in. I think the average playtime is 20 to 25 hours if you kind of mainline it. But if you do want to 100% it, there's a ton of side quests, and I think that'll, from what I've seen, it'll push up the playtime to like 50 plus hours.
I wonder if it does the near thing of like multiple endings, like
I've seen people say that because it's funny. I was digging through Reddit, and someone was like, oh, I don't know if I should buy this game. Like 20 hours seems a bit short when I'm playing. Also,
where are we in games nowadays? Jesus,
I'm like 20 hours is perfectly fine. But then people are saying like, no, it's a character action game. The idea is that you're meant to play it multiple times. But I was like, they didn't really explain why. Is there a specific reason? Like, does the story change, or is it's a character action game? You finish it, then you unlock a score system. Like, I don't know what the deal is that you would want to play it again.
Because Nier is quite like complex in that way. Like the very first time you play, you'll get most likely like what they consider called the A ending. There are instances where you can like prematurely bring about credits, like, and they're more like Easter egg funny things. Like there's a pond somewhere near the beginning of the game where you can eat like a fish, and it will just instantly kill you, and you'll get like ending F. And it'll be like, what? I recall I think at the start of the second part of the campaign you're given a choice, or it doesn't even seem like a choice. It's like, oh, you need to go help this character, and the very first time I misunderstood the layout of the level, so I ended up walking away from where I was meant to go, and it was just like, it gave me a new ending. It's like you abandoned your duty and went on to live a life of peace, and that was just the end of the game. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Like it is a mistake.
Yeah. But Nier has this thing where it's like you beat ending A, and then you kind of replay the entire game again from a slightly different perspective, and then you get ending B, and then that allows you to go back again and you see the story again from a completely different character's point of view who didn't kind of like even exist initially.
Okay.
So you're playing a lot of the same events over again, but from different perspectives, and eventually that culminates in like this big ending that is actually the ending to the narrative, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
But I think the big difference, based off what you've said here, between Stellar Blade and Nier is that where Nier is very narratively complex and very narratively interesting, asks some very big like existential questions, its combat does not support the amount of time that you need to see that through. Like its combat is very one note. And a lot of people, I mean, I think Ma and I discussed this a while back, like the game is best enjoyed just bumping it down to easy, not really like giving a shit and just being there for the story. Whereas Stellar Blade, you know, from what I've seen and what you've said, is the reverse. It's like the narrative isn't the thing keeping you going, but the combat definitely supports like enjoyment.
No, combat's really good.
Interesting.
I'm enjoying that. And there are, I mean, I don't have any footage yet, but there are the typical big bosses with like big health bars, big cinematic. It's very cool.
Yeah. No, it looks good. I want to give it a go, purely because, you know, of the Sekiro sort of vibes it has. So yeah, definitely angered that it was censored, you know, very
oh my God.
about that.
Let me talk to that for 3 seconds. This game is overly sexual sometimes, like to nobody's surprise. It's people crying that it's been censored. I'm like, really? There's a part in the game, I don't know if I've told you about this, where in the main city hub that you can hang out in is like a bar. So I walk in and there's a pool table. I'm like, oh, there's a prompt here. Oh God, can I actually play pool? Push the button prompt and she just leans on the table seductively. I'm like, why? What? For fans, you know, up in arms, I'm like, they didn't censor this.
There's nothing wrong with the game doing this, but to come at it and be like, we need a free Stellar Blade, it's like,
that's I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, and to be clear, like, you know, all intents and purposes, if that's what the game is, cool. But don't be up in arms like, I can't believe journalists have caused this game to be censored or something. Like, that's not what happened. Like, it's not by any stretch of the imagination. The game's still very much lots of booty shots. You won't be disappointed.
It's very much the thing that you have come to it for, if that's what you're looking for. Yeah.
A lot of very interesting outfits. Holy moly, but no censorship.
Yeah, I've seen some of them. I'm like, if this is the censored version, I want to see what the uncensored version was, because like, what the fuck would that be? Like, I can't imagine anything more revealing getting past like a ratings board anyway. So
it's bizarre.
Sounds cool. Stellar Blade sounds really cool, and I'm keen to give it a go.
It is good.